Want to thank everyone for joining us here today. This is a presentation of the Amicable Divorce Network in conjunction with some absolutely fabulous professionals. And we have Rosalind Sadaka here from the Child-Centered Divorce Project. Blair is here from Rainbows for All Children, and Janet Price, who is a coaching and parenting consultant and an Amicable ambassador from California, and they'll do a better job of introducing themselves. But I just wanted to jump in and welcome everybody to this Amicable Academy. When the Amicable Divorce Network hosts an Amicable Academy, that means it is open to everyone, professionals, members of the public, anybody who would be really interested in this information. And January is Child-Centered Divorce Month, International Child-Centered Divorce Month. And the reason it is most likely in January, I would assume, is because generally this is when we see such a high rate of new filings of divorce cases. And I don't know about any of the other professionals that are here on the call, but I can say that is true for 2023. Yet again, the high volume, and I don't know what everybody else saw in December, but what we were seeing in our office and through the Amicable Divorce Network is that it never really stopped. So it just seemed to keep on trucking right through the holidays this year, which is a little bit unusual. So the first person that I want to have speak to you today is Rosalind Sadaka. And Rosalind, you founded Child-Centered Divorce Month, and tell us your motivation for that and why you did it and what it's all about.
Thank you so much. So yes, January is the month when more divorces are initiated than any other. Many parents wait till after the holiday season if they're thinking about divorce, and sometimes the holiday season really creates more conflict in the home life, and people say, this is it, I know I'm ready to get a divorce. More than 1 million children each year are impacted by divorce. So it's a very dramatic number of children who have that experience. And then year after year, these become children of divorce, whether it's a year or two ago or 5 or 10 years ago, it impacts them dramatically in their life. And I'm the founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network. And 16 years ago, I decided to create International Child-Centered Divorce Month, which is a legitimate commemoration in the calendar of events that the media uses. And the focus is to educate parents around the world about the consequences of the decisions you make regarding your divorce and separation. If you're a parent, it's much more complicated. And we want to make sure that parents are supporting their children in every possible way. So what we've done is put together a free website that's only available in January. It's divorcedparentsupport.com. And when you go there and enter your email address, you immediately get to a page where you can download free gifts and resources from divorce experts on 4 continents around the world. So you have ebooks and coaching services and videos and tip sheets and various other informational pieces of materials to help parents before, during, and long after divorce. And we have divorce professionals and experts like Tracy and Janet. And we also have parenting experts and therapists and stress experts. And it's quite a broad range of people who are participating. And all you need to do is go to divorced with an ED, divorcedparentsupport.com. And those of you who are professionals, you can invite any of your clients to participate and visit there and just get access to this wonderful information, because the focus of all of it is to simplify life for the children, for the parents, and to make the divorce process as smooth and easy and amicable as possible for everyone involved, and the aftermath of co-parenting after divorce.
Yeah, I can't stress enough what Rosalind has done is really put together some very organized, beautiful resources that come from, really some of the best people in the industry. So if you're tuning in today and you're a professional, these are great resources to download and have available to you to hand off to your clients throughout the year when things occur. If you are somebody who is going through a divorce and you tuned in today, definitely, check it out for that information. It is very consolidated all in one place for the educational purposes this month. So you don't have to go to 50 different websites. You can find it all in one place. And thank you for what you've done, Rosalind. It really has, in the divorce space, created a spotlight on focusing on getting children through the divorce process well. And so for our presentation today, nobody really has like a PowerPoint or anything that is really structured for today, or very formal, because we do want you guys to be able to jump in and ask your questions, and we may have some questions for one another. But we thought it would be really helpful to go from start to finish, sort of through a divorce case, talk about the timeline of a divorce and the different choices and the different actions that parents can take to help the children through the process. And so I'm going to take the lead on that. So just to introduce myself, I am Tracy Ann Moore Grant. You don't have to remember all of that, but I am the founder of the Amicable Divorce Network. And it is an international network and the only organization in the world that vets all divorce industry professionals, from, attorneys, financial professionals, mediators, mental health professionals, anybody that helps divorcing parties. We're the only group that vets these professionals for being experienced. It is not somewhere where attorneys cut their teeth and hope to get some easy cases. You have to have 5 years minimum experience. You have to be vetted for engaging in fair billing practices, and you're vetted for being a resolution-focused professional. These are things that we're very passionate about, as everybody, Janet and Rosalind are both members, and they know they get those vetting emails and see when we're asking questions about people and doing that for feedback. And the reason is because we want to make sure that our process is child focused. So I want to explain a little bit more about what it is that we do and how children are a very important part of our process and protecting them through the divorce. So the Amicable Divorce Network really serves two different purposes. In the first is if you want to find one of those professionals for your use, or if you're a member and you're a professional tuning in today and you're like, that sounds just like me, you might be a really good fit for our group. And so we offer this database of vetted professionals. So somebody should feel confident coming to our online database at amicableddivorcenetwork.com or at divorceamicably.com. Divorce Amicably is our companion website that has more of a focus for parties going through a divorce. Amicable Divorce Network is more of our professional level content, more of our meetings and things of that nature. So there's two different websites to serve the public. And if you happen to end up on one, you can look at the top and it'll say for divorcing couples, click here, and it'll take you right to the other one, or for professionals, click here, vice versa. So you can get to the right spot and for the right information. So you can find any professional you might want to work with on this website. So that might be a good place to start to see if there's somebody in your area, resources that you need, or if you're a professional and you're looking to refer to other good professionals, it's a great database to use to find vetted professionals that you can feel confident about sending your referrals to. If we have a couple who would like to get an amicable divorce, the second purpose, first we have our vetted professionals that people can use. The second purpose is if you have a couple who wants an amicable divorce, they can use our out-of-court process to get divorced. And so generally the amicable divorce process is a streamlined, out-of-court, low conflict and efficient process for parties to get divorced. We are also launching this week. It's already live, but our announcement comes on Wednesday that this is now also web-based. So we have integrated our step-by-step process with the financial software of detour.life. So when we have an amicable case, our professionals log in to their amicable divorce online account, create the case, and it has all of their process forms on detour.life, which is a sophisticated financial software where the parties can sync their bank accounts, sync their debts. It creates marital balance sheets. It creates budgets per each party. And so that allows us to make our process more efficient, more streamlined, and more informative. So when you have a case, you can also invite mediators to view it. You can invite the other attorney to view it. You can invite people to look at this information as needed. Perhaps a financial person or a mortgage professional can just view what you've already done. On Detour Life, there is also a tab for parenting plans. And so on this, a client can also go to that tab and they can start giving their information. They can start filling out some questionnaires about what type of parenting plan they think will work really well for them. So when you have this out of court process and you're using our systems and you're using our professionals, one of the hallmarks of this process is that it is child focused. Our professionals who are handling these cases are not those high conflict professionals who are filing motions against one another in the court system, because we're not in the court system. They are not having children testify because there's nobody to testify about. We give a lot of education to our members about mental health treatment for parties and for children, about identifying personality disorders, about how to deal with difficult situations. There is a presumption that if you have an amicable case, that means that the case isn't complicated. It means that maybe it's uncontested and these people have sat down at the kitchen counter and have figured everything out. And that could be not farther from the truth. Amicable cases are just as heart-wrenching, just as complicated as traditional divorce cases. They involve all of the same issues. A lot of the cases have very high assets involved. A lot involve addiction, a lot involve personality disorders. And a lot of times the reason that people have chosen the Amicable Divorce Network is because they want the process to be private, which it is because it's out of court. We're not filing things in the court system. But they also want the flexibility of the court system, or not to be in the court system. There's no mandatory deadlines or things that have to be done. The structure is designed by the parties in the case along with their counsel and other chosen professionals. I use Georgia as a touchstone because that's where I happen to be. And so, for example, in the jurisdiction where I am, you have to file a response in 30 days. You have to go to mediation in 90 days. You can't generally get a final trial for 6 months. And that's, if a court date is available at that period of time. We can shorten or lengthen that in the amicable process as needed. I've absolutely had cases where we have had special needs children, where we had to hit the pause button, go very slow with these families because the child needed to adjust. Maybe an issue arose. And so we could really take the time with that and get a special needs assessment, a vocational assessment, do what was needed for that family. I've had where children had some mental health challenges, perhaps were in a facility. They wanted to see how the child was doing, wanted to really focus on the child while coming up with some agreements between the two of them on how to handle that. We have that flexibility. But the main focus is that the professionals, everybody that's involved, is not out to stick it to one another. Everybody's representing their clients. They're representing their clients' wishes, and we're engaging in negotiation, certainly, but we always have at the forefront a real child-focused approach. One of the ways that we focus on this is, generally speaking, in an amicable case, if there's minor children involved, we almost always have 2 mediations. One involves the finances and one involves the kids. We want these to be 2 totally separate lanes. We don't want it to be a negotiation where if I get a little bit more time, I'm going to pay a little bit less over here, or somebody's seen or perceived to be buying time with the children or anything of that nature. They're very different. And they also involve very different emotions of the parties. And so we try to keep those two very separate. Every jurisdiction we deal with is very different when it comes to mediation. So some have attorneys at the mediation, some don't. I know in speaking with Janet in California, they're very accustomed to having multiple mediation sessions, whereas in Georgia, we have one very long mediation session that sometimes goes on for 12 hours and involves all of the issues. And so we don't want to cause stress on the parties by having one of those marathon mediations. And we also want to take the time that we need to focus on the priority. So we always ask that the parties put the children first. I saw somebody liked the idea of doing the parenting plan first, and we do too. You know, first we want to know where the kids are. We want to settle that issue. We want to get all of that wrapped up. And often it's the financial issues that need a little bit more time anyway. We often have small business valuations or different sort of things that need to be done for a financial matter. We can be working on those in the background while we're focusing on how to handle things for the children and how to make sure that everybody is getting the information that they need about the kids and is focusing on that. So we really educate our professionals on seminars like this, websites like Rosalind's and you know, Rainbows for All Children, and what Janet does, so that if they have an issue that arises, the network, it's not a networking group, but it really is a global network of vetted professionals that are all there to assist one another and rise up the level of service that we provide to clients. And that means to us that we are putting the children and their best interests at the forefront. It's a child-centered divorce process. And so generally attorneys and mediators and mental health professionals and coaches and financial professionals that value this, normally they are just very attracted to our network and their eyes sparkle. And they're like, oh, I found my people. This is for me. And so generally the right people tend to find us. But if you happen to be on this and you know a person and you look at our database and they aren't a member, please send us an email to, I'll pop it in the chat, but it's info@amicableddivorcenetwork.com. And you can recommend a colleague, or if you are on this call and you have a great attorney who you think has served you very well and your children, and you want to recommend them, you can always do that. If you're a professional, you go to the Amicable Divorce Network and you apply for membership under the member tab. And then we go through our membership process. So we are very passionate that if parties initially take the first step of choosing the right process to get divorced, the whole infrastructure, you're going to have the right team of professionals around you giving you the right advice, which from us is going to be how to really help children through the process. And we can set you up for success and at least give people the tools to get down the right path. And as issues arise, we can call in others. And that's a good transition to say one of the people that we might call in is Rosalind Sadaka. She does some really great education on how to talk to children about divorce. As a divorce professional, I get this question all the time. What do I say to my kids? Should we both be there? You know, and it depends, you know, on different ages. And it's so wonderful to have Rosalind as a resource to say, oh, look at this beautiful resource that Rosalind has created, so that I can defer to her expertise. So Rosalind, I'll turn it over to you. Once parties have decided to divorce, what do you recommend that they do next?
Thank you, Tracy. Such an important question. Give me a gauge of about how much time I have to talk, and I'll make sure I'm focused in that direction.
You got at least 15 minutes, Ross, if not more.
Okay, great. So the equation is very complicated when children come into the picture, as every parent knows and understands. And it's very confusing. And there's no direct rules, this, that, or the other thing, but there are some agreements that I think most all professionals have about what to do and not do. And it's your kids will pick up on the tone and the energy of the two parents. If the parents are approaching the kids with, oh my God, this is the worst thing that has ever happened to us and our family, and now we have to share something terrible with you, you're setting yourself up for a real disaster experience for the children. If both parents are fortunate enough to get together because they've spoken beforehand to one another, and they sit down with their kids and they say, this is something that's new in our family that's happening, but we are a family and we'll always be a family. And mom and dad, or whoever the parents are, want to talk to you about some of the changes that are going to happen in our life and some of the things that are going to stay the same. And then you sit down and the tone is positive and that we're going to be working things out for you and with you and about you, so you don't have to worry about anything and life is going to go on okay. Then the kids are in a much different mindset about receiving this information. So one of the most important messages you want to convey is that it is never the children's fault. Even if you're fighting about the kids, it's not their fault. Your children are always innocent. And you need to repeat that again and again and again over the weeks and the months before and after the divorce experience, so that they remember that, because children will innately kind of feel, maybe if I didn't pick on my brother so much, maybe if I didn't get a D in my report card, maybe if this or that, they wouldn't be getting a divorce. And they have to know really firmly from you that none of this is their responsibility or their fault in any way. You also want to remind them that we've been a family for all these years and we're going to continue to be a family. So there's some changes that are taking place, but those changes are not changing the fact the form of the family is changing, but not the fact that we're a family. And then you both as parents need to have the mindset of making that so. It's much easier for children to adapt to any changes if they know that they're not losing either parent in the equation. And that means even if there's another partner in the picture, even if there's someone else that's going to be married or coming into the relationship on a relatively soon basis, that doesn't mean they are replacing the other parent for those children. The more they have that reassurance, the calmer they'll be and the more accepting they'll be. And you want to remind them that both parents will always love them no matter what, that nothing happens that's going to change your love, and that neither parent is ever going to divorce them, because kids will start thinking about if our parents no longer love each other, is there a possibility they'll no longer love me? No, that's never a possibility, and we will always be your parents and love you. You want to remind them as well that this is about change and not about blame. So it's important that professionals talk to the parents and make sure they never demean one another and dismiss one another when they're talking to the children about the other parent. And they want to be as positive as possible and explain that we had differences that were going on, maybe for months, maybe it's for years, maybe the kids were very aware of the fact that there's been conflict at home and sadness and fighting and things. And we've decided that the best way to resolve that is for us to live in two different homes, but still continue as a family, and life will go on in the best ways possible. And the more you can talk about the things that will stay the same in your children's lives, the easier it is for them to adapt. So if they're not moving to a new home or a new neighborhood, and they're still going to the same school and will still have a lot of the same friends, that definitely eases the process. In some cases, it's more difficult because the kids are making a more dramatic transition. But the more you can remind them that they'll still have their dog, they'll still have their best friend, they'll still have grandma and grandpa, those are the things that are important to root them and give them a feeling that this isn't the end of the universe. And you want to talk about the fact of change is a natural part of life. We have different hairstyles and clothing styles. We change grades in schools. We have different teachers in schools. We have different sports in schools. We have different best friends. Life is full of change. So this is just another change in the form of our family. and things are going to go on okay because we as your parents are going to make sure that's the case. So we want you to talk to us, let us know how you're feeling about things. We value your opinions, but some things can't be changed. Some things are going to move ahead and be different. And different is okay, just like being in a different grade every year. It's different, it's a little frightening. However, in most cases, it works out fine, and we are working to make it work out fine for you. So there's this mindset that both parents can create. What I've created for a lot of my clients is a storybook concept where you could actually put family photos into a scrapbook or a photo album or a digital book that you create, along with text that I've written that's adaptable and customized for each family. So you have the name of your family and your children, but the message is pretty much the same, and you adapt the message that I wrote to your family dynamic, but the message takes him from the fact that life had been better at some point in time. It's not so great right now, but we are both working very hard to make it not only good, but even better than ever for everyone in the family. And we want everyone to know that this is about love and about trust and about honoring one another. So we want to be very mindful of the way that we talk about one another as former spouses, because the kids are watching and learning and hearing that. And we want to be very mindful of the fact that all professionals agree that the number one biggest mistake parents make is showing conflict around the children. So keep your battles out of the children's vision, out of their hearing. Don't think you could close the bedroom door and be screaming and fighting at one another and the kids are not going to be impacted. You just want to be mindful of that. The less the children experience the conflict, the easier it is for them to move on. And you also want to remember that you don't want your children to feel like they're your therapists, that they're taking care of you. It's very tempting, especially if you're going through a dramatic, sad situation and you're in grief, and sometimes your parenting may not be the way it had been before. You want to reach out to support systems, best friends, family, therapists, coaches, but don't reach out to your children because they want to help, they want to support you. But it's not in their pay grade to be taking care of their parents, and it robs them of their childhood. Suddenly, your little child is parenting you, and your child can't fix you. They can't fix your relationship. They can't make you feel better emotionally. But what it does is make them a little adults. Suddenly, on top of all the things that kids have on their mind and the stresses that children have in life, they are the added stress of taking care of one or two parents. And so you want to be very mindful of the fact that you don't turn your children into confidants. You don't want your children to be little messengers. You don't want your children to be spies. It's very tempting to say, what did daddy's girlfriend say? And you know, how did daddy fix the dinner last night? Of course, you're going to have conversations in normal kinds of ways, but you don't want the conversations to go to the point when your kids know and feel that you're asking them to spy, to interfere, to be sharing secrets, to be sharing information that they shouldn't be privy to, or you shouldn't be privy to. All of that creates the stress. So the thing to remember is it's not the divorce per se that scars children. It's how parents handle the divorce that does the damage. And by being aware in advance, you can rest assured that your children are going to have the best possible opportunity before, during, and long, long after the divorce to have the life, the loving, happy life that they deserve. And that's what you as parents want for them. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have after we move ahead.
If there aren't any, we're going to turn it over to Blair with Rainbows for All Children. So Rainbows is a great organization that is really I would say boots on the ground to really help with children and going through these transitions. So they're an excellent resource if you need assistance with children in the divorce process, to call upon Rainbows as well as their resources that they have. If you are on our website, either at Divorce Amicably or amicableddivorcenetwork.com, and you look about probably a year ago on our blog, we did a great hour-long presentation with Rainbows. If you want a deeper dive into what it is that they do, it was a really great presentation I've shared with many clients. Blair, why don't you jump in and tell us what Rainbows does, how we can utilize your services?
Great. Thank you, Tracy. Well, good morning or good afternoon to everyone. It is still morning for about 20 minutes here in Illinois. I'm representing Rainbows for All Children today. I'm really happy to be here on the call. I want to start a little with the history of how Rainbows started, because this is our 40th year in operation, which is crazy. So Rainbows started in 1983. Our founder's name was Susie Yelmarta. She was going through a divorce back in the 80s, and it was really hard, of course, as we know. So she started going to support groups, and she'd get back from the support groups, and her 3 sons would say, "Mom, you seem really happy after the support group. Is there something like that we can go to?" Because the children were equally struggling with the divorce. And in the 80s, any resources for the children of divorce didn't really exist. So in 1983, in 3 Catholic schools, the Rainbows for All Children curriculum was piloted. And since then, we have served over 4 million children, and we've been in 40 US states and territories, and we are in 13 countries now. So we have surely grown a lot in these past 40 years. And the Rainbows curriculum started out just for children whose parents were going through a divorce. For the purpose of this call, I'll focus on divorce. But just so you all know, we focus on any sort of loss or absence in a child's life. So it's mostly divorce, but we also deal with children whose parents are incarcerated or deployed or have a major illness, really anything that could be defined as a loss or trauma. So if you have anyone to refer to Rainbows who maybe they have a sick parent or an incarcerated parent, you can surely send them our way. And the groups take place, the children have many different types of losses. So it's not just, oh, this is the group for children whose parents are divorced, or, oh, this is just the group for incarcerated parents and their children. We really like to let the children know that everyone experiences loss at some point in their lives, and they're not different from their peers because of the loss they have experienced. So if anyone has questions, feel free to pop in as well. But the way Rainbows works, we have a very small staff of 5 people here at our office in Evanston, and we train facilitators in their own communities to lead these support groups. It's a 14-week support group, usually done in a school or church or community center. So our groups are where the children live, learn, and play. It's not like a stranger is coming in and talking to them about their parents' divorce. It's their teacher or their librarian. It's usually a trusted adult, so they really can place their faith in that one adult. And to get the training, it's just a 8-hour online course, so anyone can be a Rainbows facilitator as long as they are above 18 and have a clean criminal record. And then these facilitators lead the 14-week curriculum guided courses to help children, deal with the loss that they're experiencing. Like Ross said, a lot of times the questions are, well, whose house am I going to live in? Or what's going to happen to my dog? And we work through questions like that to just make the children feel more comfortable with the divorce. And there's really no timeline like, oh, you're starting a divorce, you need to get the kids in Rainbows right away. In one of the recent groups I led, I had a little girl who her parents had divorced a few years ago, which she was doing okay with, but she was really struggling with the introduction of a step family. So really, whatever the children are going through, we have a curriculum to talk them through it and make sure they have the resources that they need to get through this change in life.
What age group, when we say children, I think all of us in our
Yes.
mind think of little children. They're all in kindergarten or something of that nature. So what age group does
Yeah,
Rainbows?
I really need to correct myself because we're trying to stop saying children and say youth instead. So we currently have Rainbows groups for ages 3 to 18, and it is separated into age appropriate curriculum. So you're not going to have a 3-year-old and a 15-year-old in the same group. They'll be with peers their age, and the curriculum is kind of goes towards their age. So the 3-year-olds, there's a lot of puppets and coloring and expressing yourself through that way. And the 18-year-olds, they, journal and they don't talk as much because, 18-year-olds are very finicky like that. But they, it's a lot of more introspection.
And
Is remote support available to you through Rainbows? Thank you for asking, Katie. We really focus on in-person peer support because that's a great way for children to connect and feel like they're not alone. Because of COVID, we did do some remote support, and depending on your area, there may be a remote support group. I'm going to pop a link into the chat. We have a very nifty way to find support. You just pop your zip code in here and you'll see the information for anyone who might be leading a Rainbows group in the area. And if you don't see anyone leading a group in your area, I strongly recommend you reach out to me. It's very easy to get a group going. Like I said, it's just the 8-hour virtual training, which you can do at your own pace. Our training costs $160 per facilitator, so it's pretty cost efficient as well. And once you're trained, you just find a community center or a place in your community to lead a group, and everything kind of falls together because, if there's not a Rainbows group in an area, it doesn't mean that the need is not there. It just means that someone hasn't started it yet.
Yeah, libraries, I know, because Rainbows is a nonprofit. So libraries
Yes.
in particular, I know, are very friendly to lending that space. I know we used to have it in our school system here and don't any longer, which is a shame. Ravit has asked, is there a fee for participants?
No, and that's one of the really wonderful things about our program. Really, the only cost is the $160 facilitator training. All of our programs are at no cost to participants or their families. And a lot of children thrive in, one-on-one support, say going to a therapist after the divorce, but that's cost prohibitive, and a lot of families, don't have those resources to send their children to a therapist. And a lot of kids also don't feel comfortable with that one-on-one talking to adult. They need to be with kids their own age who are going through similar traumas. And another thing we know at Rainbows is that children who have gone through divorce are also 25% likely to have experienced another major loss, or what we call an adverse child experience. So they're going through a divorce and they have an incarcerated parent, or they have a parent who's sick. And we call those mixed losses because, they have the divorce going on, which is horrible, but that's not the only thing that could be going on in their family.
Yeah, it's such a great organization. So I encourage everybody, we've dropped some links here in the chat to get familiar with them, what resources it is that they offer, and obviously a shameless plug for sending them a donation. Even $20
Yes.
will do to help them out. They are a nonprofit and they do such amazing work. It's one of those groups that really is one-on-one with children going through divorce, and it's such a wonderful group. And that brings us to Janet Price. So sometimes parents may receive all of this wonderful information from professionals on exactly how to do things and how to do it best for children. And maybe that just doesn't translate. Maybe they need some extra assistance and coaching and help on how to do things correctly. And Janet Price is a divorce parenting and co-parenting coach. She's located in California, and I will turn it over to Janet.
Thank you, Tracy. What I love about the panel that we have today is that we have this, Amicable Divorce Network, this vetted network of professionals who are trained for what Tracy just said, to help the parents wherever they are navigate. And we have Rosalind, who, when the parents are able are desiring to sit down and talk and plan together their children's and focus on their children and what their needs are. And then we have Blair's, the whole support of Rainbows. So unique. There are not organizations. Children usually find their teachers or their friends or their one friend in their school that maybe is going along, but to have it just open and available, I think it's really amazing. I offer, as Tracy said, I'm a divorce parenting and co-parenting coach. The first thing that I'd like to say to all of you, if you are not aware, if you're a professional, one of the best things to think about is that divorce is the same grief loss cycle for each and every person who in the family unit as the loss of a loved one. And so if you use that to frame for your brain and understand kind of each parent, whether they chose the divorce or they didn't, and the children have to work through that grief cycle. And so if you're a professional working with the couple or the family unit, many times what Tracy just said about, oh, maybe it's not digesting with one parent or seeking, and that just may be because they're in a portion of that grief cycle and their mindset is not in a place to be focusing and processing. So what I have noticed over the time and what I see of where we can define couples that really are able to put their emotions to the side and sit down and talk about the parenting and what's best for their children, that's their intellect or their processes each individually have been able to separate and put their own grief cycles sort of separate and independent from one another, recognize they have it, but are putting it sort of to the side when they come up and discuss their children and what's best for their children. And when you get those individuals and the parents, no matter how that conflict is showing up, whether it's showing up in your mediation, whether it's showing up with anger, that is because one or the other or both are not allowing their grief cycles to be independent of the negotiation of uncoupling or their co-parenting relationship. And so now we're getting one person's grief triggering the other person's grief. And now we have this enmeshed cycle, which then creates these high blow up conflict situations. And so basically how I work with parents is I actually work with one or the other. I never have the parents together, and I help teach them the co-parenting skills that they need to use for themselves, no matter what's going on with the other parent, what they can do to help keep the focus on the children, their actions, and what they can do to support their children, and then focus on themselves separately. I then help work with them on communication techniques and tools that they can use in order to keep the communication calm and or de-escalate. In this divorce cycle, if we have parents who are hitting you as a professional anywhere along and they're starting their divorce, I actually do a co-parenting, it's called conscious co-parenting through divorce and beyond, where both parents have the opportunity to go through a program with other parents, but they are not in the same group. So as they're divorcing, they both are receiving the exact same information, just in different cohorts with other parents, like a support group, where I help put, again, the child-centered first and foremost, and then walk them through what they can do. And it's very impactful for the parents to be hearing that information, as well as having the comfort to know that their other parent, who maybe they're not communicating very well with, is receiving the exact same information. And then they can sit prior to the parenting plan creation and really have their own framework set up, before they walk into that mediation or the discussions within their divorce. So we've got so many options here available. You know, if you're a professional today and thinking to yourself, all this information I saw, Michael, you were saying this is great. I wish every parent would be able to, what Rosalind was talking about, would be able, fact of the matter is, I know, and Rosalind would, there is not a single parent that you can ask, I don't care personality or not, that would say, geez, my desire is for my children to not grow into healthy, emotionally responsible adults, no matter what they are. Every parent alone would say they want their children to be healthy, happy, functioning adults. And so when there's conflict between the parents, wherever you touch them, that's how the group program that I offer, that is feeding them the same information, but they're free to hear it safely, so they're not triggered by all that other emotions, and they have other parents who are expressing their dynamic as well, but it's just one, it's mixed couples, men and women, you know, moms and dads are in each of the groups. It has been extremely impactful and supporting for them to start out correctly in that way.
I think
So,
there was something you said that I wish I had written it down, but it was like letting their grief get in the way of the mediation. I wish there was a delicate way as a mediator to be like, your grief is getting in the way of this negotiation. That was a way to really get people, you know, to focus and things. A lot of times, I think a lot of the people here who are the professionals, you know, you're seeing people at their worst and expecting them to act their best. And that's unfortunately also how the court system is set up. People are at their worst, but they're penalized if they're not acting at their best, or they go through this very contested trial where the only way to get what you want is to rip the other person apart. And then one day after that trial, they're expected to be the best co-parents that ever were, or potentially in contempt of court. And that just isn't possible. That just isn't humanly possible. And so what we're really trying to offer is both to the public and to, you know, the professionals who have joined us today, at least good resources that you can provide to clients that are going through this time of crisis, or if you are going through a divorce yourself, to look at these, you know, resources. Rosalind's website, not just this month, but always, is a tremendous resource. Janet, I dropped her information in the link. She has a complimentary session, group programs, one-on-one coaching, the groups that she does, all sorts of different resources to help people get through that very difficult period. And I think, you know, Janet was touching on the grief cycle. That's something we do. We have a designation, the Certified Amicable Divorce Professional designation. Our members have the opportunity to get that additional designation. I see Lauren's on here. I know she has it. With that, we go through the grief stages of divorce, start to finish, and, you know, talk to our professionals, because I think time and time again, you'll find one person is at one stage of the divorce, and usually the other person is not there. Usually somebody moved on a lot faster than the other person. And I think what Janet's touching on about this grief, you know, is because one person's, you know, they're already down here, they're already swiping right, they're dating, they're good. The other person who just found out about the divorce, they're very upset, and you don't have a match. You don't have a match for a resolution. You don't have a match for clear thinking. You don't have a match for people not verbally lashing out or for making great decisions. And so, you know, that's where it's important as a professional or somebody going through a divorce, you know, to be self-aware and knowledgeable and meet your client where they're at, know for yourself sort of where you're at and what's available to you to, you know, help and keep the kids the focus, no matter what your pain is. You know, like Rosalind was saying, don't think that you can argue behind a closed door. I had several situations as technology is getting more and more abundant where, both parents were sharing an Apple account and their text messages were being synced on a cloud and to the child's iPad. And so they weren't arguing, but the child was reading these messages, or a young child who's just learning to use a phone was using the parent's phone, but could read and was clicking to see what was going on and reading these, really bad messages between the parents. And so it's that may be how they choose to communicate, but maybe delete it before you give it to the children, and so you really have to be thinking about all these different factors for, the kids to get through this in the best way possible, because if you keep the kids the focus, almost everything else really just seems less important. And almost every client that would come to me that usually wants to work with me will tell me that the children are the most important to them if they have children. Rarely is it, my kids are okay, but that 401k is really important. And if that happens, we're usually not a good fit for one another. But so those are the types of professional, and that's the kind of information we want to get people. So does anybody have any questions, any feedback, anything of that nature? I'm going to unpin us so that people can talk if you guys would like to do so. Just feel free if you would like to jump in with anything. Except now Blair's just highlighted.
I would mention one thing for those of you professionals or parents who are in a situation where maybe you feel one parent is very child focused and the other one's not right there. The one thing, so I am a child product of a high conflict divorce. My parents divorced in 6th grade, and so unconsciously in my own divorce, try as I might, my own co-parenting became very high conflict. And the one thing I wish I had known from the beginning was that if I just focused on my children and I just continued to be the best parent support that I could be for them, I am enough. That is enough. So instead of focusing on why can't I get this other co-parent to come along with me, had I known that, there would have been a lot of my own anxiousness that would have gone down, and I would have had a lot more control over the conflict of what was going on. And why I say I know this for proof is that my children are now adult children, and I observe them, and I divorced when they were 4 and 2. I observe them now, and they have and model my manners of walking through life, my thoughts of how I cope with them. And I have children that stopped living with me when they were 11 and 13. So if I was able to, in that short period, had I known that, there's so much more I would have been able to do. So for anyone that is working with parents in that space, that would be, I think it's so, it gives so much confidence to the parents to just reassure them, just focus on being the best parent and listening and being there for your children. And it's going to be okay.
Yeah, you can only control what's in your control.
Yeah, I just
so do the best that you can do for your kids. Don't worry about what we always say. Don't worry about what the other person is doing. But that's very true, Rosalind.
I just wanted to emphasize how fascinating I found it that Janet and I both ended up talking to both parents in different ways, but getting the important message through to them. So while Janet is getting both parents in different groups, so they're not with each other, but they're hearing the identical message, I, when possible, can talk to both parents together in a coaching session. And again, as a dispassionate third party who's protecting the children, and I'm not siding with either gender or either parent, I'm able to say the same things to them. These are the ways you can do things to make life easier for your kids. These are the mistakes that if you don't avoid them, you're going to be creating havoc and stress in their life. And the choices are up to you. When they both hear it independently, they can absorb it much better because they're realizing it's not coming from anyone with an agenda other than what's best for the kids. And we both found that to be the process, and in talking with one another, discovered that it's working no matter how the parents are getting it. That's what they need to hear.
I think it's important to get the information out there. So we try to do events like this. And so we had a couple of questions. And so this is recorded. As you all know, what we do is we will put it on our blogs, we will put it on our YouTube channel, and the email link will be mailed out to our contact list, which has a few thousand people on it. So most likely you arrived at this event because of that email. So you will get it. If not, you can just email us at info@amicableddivorcenetwork.com, and we'll make sure that you get on that list. You're always welcome to share this presentation and other content. Like I said, it'll be on our blog and our YouTube, and you'll have the direct link with your clients, with anybody, a friend, a family member. Review it, yourself, anything that you want. We're going to conclude the recording, but everybody is welcome to stay around and chat.